You see these guys and they're winning these races all year. Then Van der Poel comes in and just makes them look silly and then goes away and goes back to the road. Like, is that ultimately good for cross or bad for cross? I guess it's good because it gets more people watching.
I think it's great because that, you know, when he's there or when he and Wout is there or there and they're not, it's day and night difference in terms of media attention and public attention.
Everybody, welcome back to the Move Plus. I'm Spencer Martin. I'm here with Johan Bruyneel for our weekly show. To kick off the new year, we're going to talk about Mathieu van der Poel's cyclocross season. I'm blown away by it. I have a question, Johan, if this is the best cross rider of all time. It's crazy how easy he is making these wins look, as well as a little bit of news. Lotto and Israel-Premier Tech are skipping Paris-Nice. I want to get your thoughts on that. And we will dive into a few questions that listeners have submitted that we haven't got to at the end of 2024. And again, if you want your question to be considered to be read, send it to info@wedo.team, and I will get to that as soon as I can. But first, Johan, how are things going? You're calling in from your Majorcan retreat, your lair high in the mountains there. How is the new year treating you?
Well, Happy New Year to everybody, to you and to all our listeners, Spencer. Yes, I'm calling in from Mallorca, here for a few days. I will tell I'm a little bit sick, so on beforehand, if I have to cough or during the show, I apologize. I'll try to keep it as quiet as possible, but it's sometimes beyond my control. But yeah, I mean, new year, new start as always, and I was in Belgium for the Christmas days, and I went to see one of the cyclocross races of Mathieu. Actually, the first one and the only one until now that Wout and Mathieu raced together. It was the one in Loenhout. And so I have to say it was quite impressive. The spectators, it's incredible how many people there are, the enthusiasm, the atmosphere, it's crazy. You know, but if Mathieu is there, that's one thing, but if Mathieu and Wout are together, that's crazy. It's madness, you know. I'm still a bit blown away by how popular in Belgium, how popular Wout is versus Mathieu. You know, Mathieu van der Poel he's Dutch, but you know, he's basically an adopted Belgian. You know, he's born in Belgium, he lives in Belgium, he speaks Flemish. He doesn't speak Dutch, he speaks Flemish. You know, his accent is actually more Flemish than Dutch. He's the world champion. He's a superstar. But man, Wout is unbelievable, the popularity. And I remember that start, you know, so obviously everybody was curious to see the level of Wout van Aert. We already knew that Van der Poel was amazing. And I remember the start, and Wout won the fight to the first turn, which is always the first fight, right? And the people went crazy when they saw the first, because I was at a place and there was a big screen. So it was like he had won the race already in the first corner. But yeah, I mean, the cyclocross circuit in Belgium and in Holland, it's quite the thing. It's something that you need to be able to experience on site to really have an idea and a feel of what it is. You know, whatever you see on TV, it looks, and it is very spectacular, but soaking up the atmosphere on site is something different. It's crazy.
And not to sound like a noob, a cross noob, you pay to get in, correct?
Yeah.
Like these, yeah. So they must be incredibly profitable businesses.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's very affordable. You know, I don't know. I'm gonna guess, because I mean, this was not a World Cup, but it was. I mean, it was another. I think it was another classification. I don't remember which one it was. It's like it's between 15 and 20 euros to get in. You have access to the whole afternoon. You know, it's all the categories: the juniors, the elite women, and then the elite men. And sometimes in World Cups, there's even elite elite under 23 sometimes. So you have 3 or 4 races. But it's the experience, and I think for 20 euros, if you're able to stay there in the cold, which because it's cold, it's a nice afternoon out. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how many people there would be, but I would guess somewhere between, I don't know, 6,000-8,000 spectators on a very reduced circuit, which is of course the attractiveness of the event, right? So it's very contained. It's a small circuit where you can see them several times, and obviously very easy to organize several VIP spots. It's a profitable business for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to think about. I mean, there's all this, if you think of, there's always every few years, there's a suggestion. It's like, they could charge to attend a mountaintop finish and people lose their minds. But it's already happening in cross. And they do it at the classics as well. At Flanders, you have to pay to be at the key spots. So the Flemish are onto something. What is Van der Poel's connection to Flanders? Because his dad is Dutch. His grandfather's French, but he was born in Belgium.
Yeah, I mean, Adrie already lived in Belgium. I remember Adrie, his dad, we were teammates. I spoke to him before the race. I always go and see him whenever I go to the cyclocross. He already lived in Belgium. A lot of Dutch riders lived in Belgium, just over the border for tax reasons. It's a more tax advantage apparently in Belgium than in the Netherlands. So a lot of Dutch riders were residents in Belgium. So Mathieu is born in Belgium and lives in Belgium now also. So and he actually does not speak the same language with the same accent as Adrie.
Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. That can happen. I mean, you're an expert in this. You can have children somewhere and then they have a different accent as you, speaking the same language. But so Van der Poel's raced 5 races so far this year, won all of them. He had like a infamous, I guess, quote now that he's staying. He said, "I want to stay in zone 2 during the races and I'll do my intensity later." It's hard to believe that could be true.
That's impossible. That's impossible. Yeah. No, it's so intense. It's so intense. Even if he's, measuring his effort. First of all, the start is full gas. He is, for the moment, he's that good that he can permit himself the luxury to say, okay, I'm going to just wait and see, stay in 6th, 7th position, then I'll move forward bit by bit. And I know that nobody's going to be far enough ahead that I can't catch them anymore. He's that good. But it's not zone 2. No way it's zone 2.
There's no way. That would be that would be scary if he was in zone 2. But he is winning, really. He makes it look easy. It never seems in doubt. Is he the best cross rider of all time?
In my opinion, yeah, for sure. For sure.
I mean, he has, 6 world championships, probably soon to be 7.
That would be equaling the record with Erik de Vlaming, which is the brother of Roger de Vlaming, who is considered the best cyclocross rider of all times. Erik was super talented also. He also raced on the road. I think he even won a stage in the Tour de France, or even more than one. But that's in the 70s. Van der Poel is the best of all times. I mean, he comes in, and all the specialists, the best in the world, who have been dominating the scene until his arrival, are ridiculed the first day, like basically blown away.
Yeah.
It's quite impressive if you see him, and you see it in front of your eyes, the way he's on that bike, the way he pedals, you can really see the power. Like, he has so much power, and with every pedal stroke, this bike just goes forward, like in a way that I don't see with anybody else. He has a special way of riding his bike. If you go back to, for example, Paris-Roubaix, of 2024 where he attacked and the way he rode over those cobbles. That's exactly what you see in the cyclocross, where you see him pass in front of your eyes. And for me, there's no doubt he is the best cyclocross rider of all times. No discussion.
Is it good for cyclocross? It's kind of a stupid question because it's not good or bad. It just is what it is. But the fact is, I know what you're saying. You see these guys and they're winning these races all year. Then Van der Poel comes in and just makes them look silly and then goes away and goes back to the road. Like, is that ultimately good for cross or bad for cross? I guess it's good because it gets more people watching.
I think it's great because when he's there, or when he and Wout is there, or there and they're not, it's day and night difference in terms of media attention and public attention. Race-wise, it's the races when they're not there are more attractive. It's suspense until the last moment. You almost never know until the last lap who's going to win. When Mathieu is there, after 1 minute who's going to win. I personally like both. But I think that as long as Van der Poel and Van Aert are involved in cyclocross, it's good for all the others because it lifts their sport to a different level, which ultimately, even when they're not there, they still profit from. It makes the sport more popular.
Yes, that kind of gets overlooked a lot when that question is asked. Like, this is very niche, but like Jon Stewart came back to host the Daily Show in the US 1 day a week. Other hosts are 4 days a week. You could say, well, he's taking the spotlight, but then people will stick around and watch the other host, most likely because they come in for Jon Stewart. Another question. Wow. Just not on the same level as Van der Poel, but he's not been for a few years. Like, does it mean anything? Like, does it matter that Van der Poel's so much better in cross? Is this getting in Wout's head, or is it just Wout's there to ride around? I mean, it's actually a little funny to me that these guys even bother to do this. Can you imagine a less enjoyable thing over your Christmas holiday?
But it's their first original way of cycling. Let's not forget that both Van Aert and Van der Poel were exclusive cyclocross riders in the beginning of their careers. And they transferred to the road, and then they turned out to be really, really, really good on the road. But that's their first love. And it's normal that they reduce the season. I think Wout is only going to race 5 or 6 races. And Mathieu is going to do 11. I mean, now 10, because I think today he decided not to race because he must have. I mean, this race that he did where I was, apparently he had a crash. I didn't even see it, and apparently he has hurt his ribs, and he decided not to race today. But I think it does mean it's impressive to see that they're on such a high level, where in theory both of them are preparing, and they're still in full preparation for their road season. So they can't be at the top of their game. There's no way they're at the top of their game now, especially Wout. Wout, let's not forget, he comes back from a very serious crash in the Tour of Spain. Very big recovery. He had to have surgery on the knee. If you look at, I've seen some pictures. Maybe we can ask Gabriel to insert one of the pictures here of Wout's knee. I saw a scary picture of his knee at the training camp. It's pretty crazy that he's already like racing cyclocross at this high level right now. But they're not 100%. This is not their top level in terms of physical condition. It just fits into their preparation for the coming season and the Spring Classics.
Do you think it's good preparation for the Classics?
That's great preparation, especially because both of those guys. And I would put Pidcock in the same category. These guys can just show up there and do. They're maybe not gonna always win, especially Wout and Tom, but they can race. Use this as some high intensity training, they're not going to destroy anything in their build-up. On the contrary, they can actually use these kind of efforts in their build-up towards the Spring Classics. In Pidcock's case, it's not going to be the case because he's declared already that he's not going to do any cyclocross races. But I think it's great preparation for them.
I guess the one caveat, and also, I mean, someone calling in sick to work on New Year's Day, a little suspicious from Van der Poel. Did he crash? Do we have confirmation of that? But he did. I mean, I'm reading it right now. They said that he fell and hit his chest on a pole. That doesn't sound great. I guess that's the one risk, that you're out there in the mud and the ice and you could get hurt. So,
yeah, you can. But I mean, normally in general, there are crashes in cyclocross. In general, it's without too much harm. It's not like if you crash on the road on hard asphalt, you can hurt yourself for sure. You can crash against one of those poles or a tree or this or that, but there's not compared to the amount of times that it's possible to crash. Then they crash very little, and then if they crash, usually that's not a big deal. So I think the risk is not very big.
I mean, it's at this race, Loonhout, the race you were at, 9th place, Tim Merlier, just quietly a road sprinter getting top 10 in a cross race. Pretty impressive.
Especially in the beginning, the first lap, Merlier was in 3rd position. He even went to 1st position. It's true also that, Van der Poel and Van Aert were there, but then a lot of others, like big specialists, were not there. Iserbyt was not there, Van Toornout was not there. But still, Merlier was, he just started again there. And, to be able to start like this and then to maintain this effort for an hour and finish 9th, that means that the condition of Merlier is already really good. He did already quite a few beach races in Belgium. That's quite popular. At the North Sea and in Holland, they do a lot of beach races. So it's not, I'm not going to say it's the same as cyclocross, but it's a similar effort, maybe a bit longer, because I think the races are like 40, 50 or 60K. But obviously Merlier is already on a good level.
I mean, I guess if you have to train through December, January for the road, it stands to reason. I mean, do something that you find enjoyable and fun to push yourself. I mean, I frankly would probably I would be where you are. Give me to Mallorca, get me to the Canary Islands, get me out of Belgium. But I could see it. I can see how that makes sense. Well, one thing before we move on, I don't think we talked about this. The Pidcock announcement that he was skipping cross to focus on road, and then specifically said to focus on stage race. He wanted to win some stage races. I was a little confused about that, because wasn't that the whole friction with Ineos, where they wanted him to focus on road and then he leaves Ineos? Now he's focusing on road. What is that about?
Well, I mean, stage races and Grand Tours is different, right? I mean, I think in the interview of Pidcock, I mean, you've seen it, right? In Rouleur Live. I had the impression he was talking about the Tour de France, that his team wanted him to focus on the Tour. Yeah, that's probably not the case. In hindsight, I think the move from Pidcock to Q36.5, I think it's a good one, man. I've also seen now, in the meantime, since the last time we spoke, they also hired his younger brother, who's apparently also really good. So at Ineos, that would not have happened either. So we'll wait and see. But I think Pidcock's going to have a good season.
So no, I agree. I think there seems to be a focus there. I guess on the stage racing, if you want to win stage races, you probably have to work pretty hard on your time trial. So I'm curious to see how that works out, because if you remember, like Suisse last year, pretty good ride actually from Pidcock, but he just wasn't on the time trialing level of the UAE Mafia, who just absolutely crushed that race.
Oh, I think in Pidcock's case, I think it's especially a matter of focusing on that discipline. I don't have the impression that he has been training on time trial at all.
Yeah.
even since he's a professional. Now, let's not forget, Tom Pidcock has been world champion time trial in the juniors. So, okay, it's juniors, but he if he would focus and train on it, he could improve significantly compared to his actual level.
Maybe that's what he's doing right now. Maybe that's why he's not doing cross. I mean, he is an incredible athlete, just even the way he sits on the bike. So if he wants, yeah, you're right. Like he can time trial. If he wants to be better at time trialing, I'm sure he can do it. If you, some of those feats he does in mountain biking, like if you watch what he can do in mountain biking, you think this guy probably do whatever he want on the road, except maybe beat Tadej Pogacar, because that might not be possible from anyone at the moment. But our next bit of news, Johan, Lotto, just Lotto now, not Lotto Destiny. They have single sponsor, and Israel-Premier Tech are turning down Paris-Nice. They're both auto. They both trigger like the auto invite to that race because of the two top pro teams, second division teams from 2024. So in 2025, they get invited to every World Tour race. They're turning it down. The reason I bring this up, pretty interesting decision. Because Paris-Nice used to be considered that was like the way to prepare for the season, right? Like everyone wanted to do Paris-Nice because that's how you trained. So it tells us how much training's changed. It also tells us like the fantastic position these two teams are in. They have so many points racked up in 23 and 24. This is the last year of the relegation promotion cycle. So after this year, the top 18 teams in that 3-year UCI point standings will be in the World Tour. The teams that don't make it, like let's say Astana, currently not slated to make that cut, will go down to the second division. But they currently have such buffers. They can really do whatever they want. I mean, I guess we were talking about this before we recorded. I guess like Lotto will probably go to Tirreno, Adriatico, and then chase points at other races, but they don't even really need to chase points because they have almost 20,000 more points. No, they have more than 20,000 points than Arkea, Uno X, and Astana in the cumulative race, which means if Astana had Visma's year from last year and Lotto didn't score a single point, they still wouldn't overtake them. So they've got a big buffer there. And like, what did you make of this? I actually was a little, maybe I'm old school, but I was a little shocked they're just punting a Paris-Nice invite.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, it shows you also how, being in the top 2 of the pro team classification is actually a great situation to be in. It's actually better than being.
Yeah, it's the best.
It's better than being World Tour because you are allowed to participate wherever you want, but you're not obliged to participate wherever you want. Where sometimes, okay, you have the right to participate, which is obviously what the World Tour is. But we all know that there's so many races that sometimes, having to go to certain races is a burden. In this case, both of those teams pulling out of Paris-Nice, I was a bit surprised too because, let's not forget there's always the factor ASO and having to be politically correct with them because they own almost all the races, Paris-Nice being one of them, Tour de France organizers. But I'm pretty sure they've looked at the calendar and said, okay, we can't do anything here in Paris-Nice that will be super beneficial for us with the teams we have. Tirreno may be a better course for them. I don't know, but I think especially they want to save their team and then really hit hard in other races to even add more points to be absolutely sure. I think it's safe to say that Lotto is going to be World Tour in 2026, and probably Astana and Arkea will not be. Right? And not Israel, but Lotto has also decided to not go to the Giro.
Yeah,
which they did already in 2024 also. And it turned out that it was a pretty good decision because they could use their strongest riders during that period in other races, and score points. So they're being smart about that. So a bit surprised myself also that they say no to Paris-Nice rather than Tirreno. But if you look at it on the big scale, I think it makes sense to save your team a bit and really focus on races where you can actually score points.
Hey, everybody, I want to tell you about a new sponsor we have here at The Move, which is Here.com. If you've ever been frustrated with hearing loss, Here.com is exactly where you need to go. These guys are the real deal. They've got an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau, a 4.9 rating at Consumer Affairs, and over 500,000 people are already loving their super tiny, super powerful German hearing aids. 500,000, that is a lot. And the glowing reviews keep rolling in. Take Jerry, for example. He wrote in saying that the in-home exam made everything so convenient and his new devices are extremely comfortable compared to the old ones. Or James, who called working with Here.com a total win and said it's one of the best investments he's ever made. The best part, with insurance, flexible financing options, and 100% money-back guarantee, Here.com makes getting great hearing aids super easy. So if you're ready to stop saying what and start hearing the world again clearly, now is the time. So right now at here.com/move, not the move, our listeners can sign up for an exclusive 45-day no-risk trial so you can hear the difference for yourself. So what are you waiting for? Head to here.com/move. That's HEAR.com/move, not the move today to get that offer. All right, now back to the show. And I guess outside of points, if your goal is World Tour wins, you'd think, what does Tirreno have a lot of? Too many of, in my opinion, sprint stages. It feels like that's a stage race that's all sprint stages, a time trial, and maybe a summit finish. So if you go with Dali, you probably are at least in contention for a stage, and you don't chew your team up at Paris-Nice, and then you keep them fresh. It's probably the reason they skipped the Giro. Like, think of the advantage that is. You're coming out of May fresh when all your competition is ground down by the Giro d'Italia. And then they win a tour stage with Victor Campenaerts this year. So it pays off. I guess who are we to doubt their logic? It's been working well for them the last few years.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've been reading a lot about Lotto, about their struggles with sponsorship, with internal fighting, some controversy about certain decisions that have been made. But if you look at the end result until now, where they were a few years ago when the former manager John Lalonde left, and where they're now in terms of sporting results, I think they've done a great job.
And I was going to do maybe a newsletter on this, but you're going to hear a lot about the relegation battle. It's teams are fighting for points. I'm already seeing stories about this with Astana. They're so far behind. So Cofidis is currently in spot 18 in the cumulative rankings. They're roughly 5,000 points ahead of Arkea, who is winding down, ? They've kind of are letting all their expensive riders go. They have a bunch of young riders. They probably won't score a lot of points. Uno X is 6,000 behind Cofidis. Uno X doesn't score an overwhelming amount of points. Yeah. You have Astana is 9,000 behind Cofidis. And to make up a delta of 9,000 points, Astana would have to be one of the best teams in the world this year to do that. So,
which there won't be.
No. So it probably is what it is. If you go to the standings and you see the last three places are Intermarché, Team Picnic, PostNL, formerly DSM, Cofidis, that's probably it. And then Israel and Lotto will be promoted. Astana will be Astana and Arkea will be relegated. Arkea maybe won't mind because they might shut the team down at the end of this year, is the rumor. I don't want to speak on their behalf though, but that is how it's looking.
Yeah. I think you're exactly right. I think by now they all have it figured out and they know how the point system works, and they're choosing their program in function of the points that need to be scored. And let's not forget, there's also, a part of retaining your spot in the World Tour or not. There's always the prestige battle of, okay, it's better to be 4th team than 12th team in the world, in terms of the accomplishments at the end of the season. So not everybody is worried about, losing their spot in the World Tour. They want to be up as high as possible.
Yeah, it's true. And I guess now that you say Lotto and Israel aren't really worried, like why are they not worried about the politics with ASO? I guess if they have auto invites and then they're going to be World Tour next year, they're basically good for the next 4 years. The only problem is they've almost been too good. If you're the best pro team year after year, you'll then get promoted, which now, if you think about it, when this was introduced, that almost seemed like a positive, but it's almost like they're being punished. It's like, okay, you've exploited the system. Now you have to play on the same rules as everybody else. Come join us in the World Tour and do all the races. And you got to go to the Tour of Guangxi at the end of the year, even though no one wants to go.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll get into a few questions before we take off. This one's been sitting in my inbox for a while, and I have not read it, but I think it's a good question. In previous episodes from Nate, in previous episodes, the comparison has been made between modern pro cycling and Formula One. As a fan of both sports, it got me thinking simulators and wind tunnels play a big role in F1 for car setup and development. With modern technology and platforms like Swift, are professionals and teams relying more on virtual rides or simulations? I suppose nothing beats being out on the road, but is this a decent alternative? I mean, the big difference in F1 is they have to make their own car, so they have to have simulators because you can't just like, I don't even think they're allowed to drive their car outside of a certain number of hours per year. Cycling teams obviously don't make their own bikes, but they do set them up, and we see like setups are becoming more and more important. What do you think about this, Johan? Should teams be leaning more on simulators for their setups?
I think nowadays everybody does, not just in pros, like or in the younger categories. It's already the case. So if I go back in my days, I never even knew what a bike fitting was, or wind tunnel. But it's often driven by the bike brand, right? Because they're financing it. Wind tunnel time, for example, is expensive. And then some of the riders actually do individually bike fitting, even if they're already pro since 5-6 years. And they can say, okay, I have a comfortable position. There's always room to check something which could be better, especially in time trials. So they're relying heavily on the new knowledge and the new technology, and I think it's great.
I mean, you guys were famously at Postal. You were in the wind tunnel quite a bit, right? I remember that's the first time I ever heard about it, that a team would go.
Yeah, it's one of the first times you heard about it, but it's not the first time it happened. It was just not very publicized. But I remember back in the day, sometimes we went to a wind tunnel in San Diego, the low speed wind tunnel, which means it's for other vehicles than like Formula One cars or racing motorbikes. And it was always interesting to check in. Even if you had a guy like Lance who had been already 2 or 3 years, he always wanted to go back and see if we could fine tune little details.
Yeah, and I guess you're right. It's really expensive to be in a tunnel. Probably the problem is you'd have to write your own. So if you wanted to know, like, oh, are these handlebars faster than these other handlebars? It's more complicated than even the wind tunnel can deceive you. It's like, oh, this is fast in the tunnel, but are you testing it with? They don't have wind tunnels that test like Flemish crosswinds that change every 4 kilometers, and then maybe it's actually really slow.
They do actually. They do.
They do.
Yeah. You can decide. You can test the wind from all different directions. It's not just from the front.
And then in cycling, you could also have a really fast setup, but not be able to turn the bike, or you're maybe uncomfortable on it, and then you're putting out less power. So it's pretty complex. They probably should use more. I would be curious to talk to someone like Stefan Kuhn, because I know he's put a lot of work, and he has these 3D printed TT handlebars that are hugely important. Like that's actually what's really important in time trials is the cockpit, because all the bikes are kind of the same. I would be curious to hear like how do they come up with those designs? Like they must have some sort of computer program that's telling them what's fastest.
For sure.
This one, I was on the fence about whether to read this one. Maybe people cut it out. Hey guys, I do think about this question a lot. That's why I'm picking it. Love the show and insight. Curious, how would you explain such a drastic drop off for Chris Froome? It's shocking to go from an all-time great rider to barely a Peloton filler. Thanks, Mike. And the reason this stuck out to me is because I read this and I thought, well, what do you mean Peloton filler? He's not in the Peloton. And then I remembered, wait, he is in the Peloton. I had forgotten that he was racing. And it is weird because he won, think of it, he won 4 tours. He's still racing. And it feels like that was all a fever dream we had. It's a very strange arc, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, to me, it's very simple. There's before the crash and after the crash, Chris Froome. That's the breaking point. Let's not forget when he had that famous crash when he was warming up in the time trial for the Dauphiné, which was preparing for the Tour. He was the favorite to win the Tour again, and he might have had won his 5th Tour if he doesn't have that crash. After the accident, he had a lot of different surgeries, long time out of circulation, long time not being able to walk. This before and after, and I think physically, first of all, but also especially mentally. Once you get into, like right now, Froome, even if his condition would get significantly better, I think that he's already mentally so drained, mentally so tired of his bad performances that not even there he would be able to come back. But to me, it's the accident. Very simple.
Yeah, that would stand to reason. What if the crash never happens? Like, let's say, just like Geraint Thomas, he gets older, everyone gets faster. Like, what do you think is, because Geraint Thomas is good. Geraint Thomas is probably better now than he was ever in his career, doing pretty well, not winning the Tour anymore. Do you think that would kind of been Froome's path had he not crashed, or do you think he'd still be winning?
I think he probably would have won at least one more Tour de France. And then, listen, it's even if Froome right now, I read sometimes that he said, I have my best numbers, or I'm close to my best numbers. Obviously, it's already, when the last time he won? 2017? It's 7 years ago.
He was decent in 18, right? When Thomas won the Tour.
Yeah, he was 3rd.
Yeah.
He was 3rd, and he had.
Well, that's the year he won the Giro.
Yeah. So he would still be at his highest level, but we all know that his highest level from back then doesn't buy you even a top 10 in today's Tour de France. So he would have been racing, but he would not be the dominating Froome we had seen before.
I mean, one of my pet theories is that you hit it on the head. Like, the winning rides of 18 are not top 10 now. So how do you keep performing? You have to be really flexible, like mentally flexible. Geraint Thomas, incredible. Like, it feels like his superpower is like things are changing, things aren't what they used to be. And Geraint Thomas is very good at just like adapting, like, oh, I'll try this. Like, I think he was saying he changed coaches maybe for this season. His last season would be easy not to do that. Where Froome feels it's almost like because he's so good, he's more rigid in his thinking. And I believe he was like really rejected the high carb theories of like, oh, I shouldn't have all these carbs. I should be Ineos or Team Sky was big into not having carbs on the bike, and maybe he was slower to adapt than other people. That's just a theory. I have no evidence of that. That's just a theory of mine.
Yeah, makes sense.
So here's another interesting one about the 2003 Tour de France. I think one of the best tours of all time. From Jan, not Jan Ulrich, but Jan in the Czech Republic. I'd like to ask Johan about many specific racing moments, but mostly about this one, the 2003 Tour de France, Stage 9, and Balaki's crash on the Col de la Rochette, the descent right into Gap. Is that where it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was a huge Balaki fan, and it seemed like it might be the first time he could be pretty close to Lance in Paris. The day before, it was pretty equal in Alpe d'Huez, and I guess he was only 40 seconds behind in a GC at the time of the crash. He lost that time in the team time trial. Did you see Balaki as a real danger in 2003 before the crash?
I saw him as a candidate for the podium. but I didn't see him as a real threat for winning the Tour against Lance. It's true that 2003 was a difficult, you say the nicest Tour de France. For me, definitely not.
And it was hot. Remember how hot it was?
Yeah. But,
Oh my God.
my biggest stress was that, Lance was not in top shape, He was not in the shape that he was normally in the Tour de France. And it felt I've always believed that we would win. But sometimes it felt a lot more fragile than the other years. Like basically all the other years except 99, the first year. But from 2000 on, it always felt like in the Tour, we have done all the work, all the preparation, we've done the homework. It was like we always felt like everything was under our control, except that 2003. I didn't know if Lance would maintain his level during the stage, or if all of a sudden he would be less good and lose 5-10 minutes. That was always in the back of my mind, so it was stressful.
And the rest of the question is: this guy claims that he actually did the shortcut on his own bike and confirm it was rough. I think the most impressive thing is the jump onto the road. In retrospect, that could have gone poorly. That's crazy. That did that in road shoes. Not easy to jump over that ditch. But did you see the situation in the car, or were you kind of blind?
Yeah, no, I didn't see it in the car at all. I don't know how it is now with technology and TV reception, but back in those days, it's already 22 years ago. We had TV in the car, but it was with a satellite antenna, and more often than yes, we didn't have any connection. And then on top of that, it was in the downhill of a Category 2 climb towards Gap, and we had no clue what was going on, because even if I was car number 1, we were not allowed to pass a lot of people, because a lot of people had been dropped on the second category climb. So there was no way I was going to make it to the front group before the top of the climb. But anyways, I didn't know what was going on. We had no information, and I only found out after the stage what happened. And for the pure reason that I arrived, I stepped out of the car, and a bunch of journalists came towards me, like they flew on me, and they said, what's your opinion? Should he be disqualified? I said, what happened? And then they told me, and there were certain French journalists who said, well, he should be disqualified because he didn't follow the course.
Yeah, I love that take. Yeah, he cut the course. Get him out of here.
Yeah.
Were you really concerned? Was there ever a conversation with them about? No.
It was just on the moment. The French press wanted to see if there was a possibility to disqualify Lance because he hadn't followed the course.
That would have been amazing. Can you imagine that? DQ'd, or he has to go back. It's all running time. He has to get back there, re-ride the section of the road that he missed, and come back. He's only down 45 minutes in the GC. Maybe he still could have won. We don't know. It is crazy he didn't go over the handlebars when that's a steep off-road descent on probably pretty hard road tires, small road tires.
Yeah, if you really look at if you see the images, in hindsight, it's quite. It took quite the skills and incredible reflexes to have that kind of reaction. Jump off the bike and then run through the field, get back on the bike, jump over the ditch again. In the final of a Tour de France stage, it was quite something. But at the moment of the incident, I had no clue what was going on because we were too far behind.
It's probably for the best. On the Balaki, I find myself daydreaming about Balaki a lot. Like, could he have won that Tour? I guess the thing I keep coming back to is Jan Ullrich was very fit that year. And if Jan Ullrich did not beat Lance Armstrong in 2003, it's hard for me to believe that anyone else would have.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something I can never quite get past with the Beloki theoretical.
Yeah, we've never seen Beloki as it was Lance versus Jan always. Any other time when Jan was either not there or was, I think there's one year he was there. I'm actually, I don't know if it was, I don't remember now when he didn't get second. One year he got fourth.
Yeah, was that 2004?
It's possible. It's possible.
That was a weird year. Yeah, there was some weird telecom years in there. Remember, like Vinokurov was racing against him.
Beloki was at the maximum a candidate for the podium for us. But that year, he was really good, and Lance was not his usual self. So, he would definitely have fit into that group of potential candidates, because you had Vinokurov and you had Kleuden and you had Jan and who else was there? I don't remember who else was there. Basso, I guess.
I mean, the next year, Kleuden did finish second.
Yeah.
And then Basso's third, Ulrich's fourth.
Yeah.
Jose Azevedo, fifth. Kind of 14, he's in fifth. That's like Pogacar numbers. He's in fifth, 14 and a half minutes down.
Yeah, but he was on our team.
Yeah, no, that's like you guys were the UAE of your time, just stacking the top five. Last question. This will not take long. I can't get this out of my head. I sent this to you a few weeks ago, and we have to address it. How would Tadej, Tom Pidcock, and the other top riders fare at Leadville, which is a race in the United States, and Leadville, Colorado is part of the Lifetime Grand Prix. It's a mountain bike race, kind of. They call it a gravel race, but it's kind of a mountain bike race. Fare at Leadville versus Keegan Swinson. Wondering why none of them come ride it. Thanks, Russ. Well, it's in the middle of it's right after, it's during the Vuelta, I believe, and it's before World Championships. And it's across the world. So that would address why they don't come ride it. I do think Lance rode it in 2009 or 2010 and set the course record.
Yeah, I think what was it? I don't remember if it's the year he came back or if it's the year he retired. I don't remember now when he did it. Why they don't come? First of all, they're not gravel riders; they're road riders. Plus, I mean, with all due respect for Leadville, it's called Leadville 100, right?
Yeah, 100-mile. Yeah, it's a 160K.
Yeah,
mountain bike race, fast mountain bike race.
Yeah, and it's if I remember correctly, it's up a hill and then down a hill, right?
Yeah, that kind of sums it up. It's also at a very high altitude, like 3,000 to 4,000 meters of elevation.
It's very simple. First of all, they're not gravel riders. And secondly, with all due respect for the event, in the big scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal. It's not like something that I have to absolutely have on my palmares. These guys are never going to go there. Maybe one of them is going to turn into a gravel rider and wants to go there. But and let me tell you, if Van Aert or Mathieu or even Tadej would go there, even at 80% of even in the off season, they'd crush it. There's nobody who's beaten those guys.
Yes, I mean Tom Pidcock. If you watch him mountain bike, he would eat this thing up.
Yeah.
And we should say Keegan Swinson. Keegan's very good. Like he's a pro level mountain bike, like a World Cup mountain bike racer. He did race road worlds one year. Oddly, they couldn't get anyone to go to Australia, so they brought him. He finished inside the time limit, which is not easy. So he is like replacement level pro. Like if you can just fly to Australia, finish inside the time limit at Worlds, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
He's kind of a specialist at high altitude. Like he lives at high altitude. He's kind of hacked the high altitude racing. So it's not like the guy is a pushover and he's dominating everybody. But the thing is, I think the answer is back at the beginning of this podcast. Remember we were talking about everyone looks like all these cross riders look amazing. And then Van der Poel shows up and it's like, oh, wow, this is just a different level. I think that's what you'd see from Tadej, Tom Pidcock, Van der Poel, Van Aert, I think they would do pretty well at this event.
Yeah, absolutely. Different level. You can't compare.
Yeah.
You can't compare.
I mean, and the thing with like Tadej can climb so fast, like so much faster than Keegan Swenson, that Keegan would be in the red the whole race, even if he could stay close to him, that Tadej could be like resting on the downhills while Keegan's pinned on the downhills. Tom Pidcock, it would be unchallenged on the downhills and would be able to rest basically while everyone else is at the limit on the technical sections. And these guys are just so good, these top guys. It's kind of fun that they don't come do it. It's just keeps its own thing.
I mean, the interesting question would be, Spencer, let's, if you take Van Aert, Van der Poel, and Pidcock and Tadej, somebody would need to ask, do you know what Leadville 100 is? I mean, I'm going to say 3 out of 4 would even say they have no clue what it is. They don't even know.
Pidcock definitely knows what it is, and he's probably the only one.
3 others, I mean, you would be surprised, man. You'd be surprised if they know what it is.
We kind of have a test for this too. If you remember, Cyclocross Worlds were in the United States in Bentonville, and nobody went except Pidcock of the top guys, and then that's his world title. Yeah, so it's just that shows you, and that's a world championship. It's just hard to get those guys to make the trip. I
mean, they have such a stacked schedule already during the whole season. Logistically, it's just not possible to bring them over quickly. And then go back and because what's the date of that race?
It's like mid-August.
Okay,
so smack in the middle of the Vuelta.
Yeah,
It's also messes you up. We saw Matej Mohoric come and do Unbound.
Yeah,
it's a hard trip. It's like you don't get off the plane and you're at the start of Unbound. It's a lot of travel, and I think it kind of messed the season up. Like he was never quite the same.
It's a big ask for these guys to go do that. If they would do it, it would probably be because of pressure of the bike sponsor that wants to see them on a gravel bike or something, or a mountain bike.
Yeah, that's true. That's like the Sagan era of your career, though. When you're transitioning into being ambassador for the brand, these guys are not there at that point. Well, thanks, Johan. Do you have anything else to add before we take off?
That's it.
All right. Well, we'll be back with our regular schedule next week, and Happy New Year to you and to all of our listeners.
Okay. Happy New Year to everybody. Thanks.